Some lakes don't have oxygen down deep into the lake, and like Cold Lake does, which is what makes it like a special lake.
CLFN's a, relatively speaking, quite well developed reserve. Like, we have companies, hotels, casinos, there's a lot of employment. The nation still has a lot of its territory. So there's a lot of people that, work in the oil and gas sector, which obviously also creates some level of tension with conservation measures. This area where we are has supported Cold Lake First Nations people since the last ice ages. The territory is very important, and nobody really understood or paid attention to the dynamics of how, the sort of development of the landscape was going to impact wildlife populations. We engage with every process that occurs in the territory.
We do a lot of aquatics monitoring, which is like surface with water quality. We go out and we take water sample measurements, we look at DO, we look at pH, conductivity, as well as like photocyanin, which is a byproduct of blue-green algae, just to make sure that the water in some areas is safe for people to swim in.
Collect data, take water quality measurements, count plants and plots, take samples. We do hunting and fishing for the community, so we provide meat and fish and medicines. Also, we're monitoring ungulate species, mostly caribou. Caribou are endangered, and they're mostly affected by industry. The Dene people in this area traditionally hunted the caribou. We were caribou eaters. So as long as the caribou numbers in this area are too low for us to sustainably hunt them, then we're not able to practice our traditional rights. So in order for us to continue our traditional rights, we'll have to protect the caribou.
So caribou are in decline across much of Western Canada. Alberta populations in particular, as well as BC, are declining by 10% a year.
A caribou's best defense is basically hiding or going into areas where there aren't a lot of predators, which is like the muskeg areas or the old growth forests that aren't as productive.
Caribou are super hard to find. They're hard to spot. They're hard to see from the air. They like to hide. That's their anti-predator strategy. They hide.
Nobody counts populations of caribou. They're hard to count. So what they do is they count growth rate.
Often we miss them if we try to count them. So instead we rely on collaring a bunch of the females, understanding what the adult female survival is doing. And then we also relocate those females to find out how many calves they have. And that gives us information about how the population's doing.
If you want to keep caribou around for those landscape scale measures to be, to become effective, you need to manage downward the wolf population.
The complications that can happen is, of course, if you reduce those predators, you have less predators killing other species like white-tailed deer and moose. And then you see those populations increasing, which creates this never-ending problem of more deer, more moose, more wolves. You have to kill the wolves. More deer, more moose, more wolves. You have to kill the wolves.
If you lower the number of predators, you're going to increase the number of prey. So moose and deer, right? So that actually just creates more sort of pull for wolves to migrate in from surrounding jurisdictions.
If there's less prey, less moose and deer, then it should limit the amount of wolves too that want to come in the area, because there's less easy prey. Beaver populations should go down. Beaver are easy prey for wolves. Deer population should go down a little bit, and moose. They might have one or two calves, and then that just creates an easy prey for the wolves.
There are tipping points in an ecosystem where, the balance of species on the landscape changes because we've advantaged one over the other.
With CLFN, what we're doing is seeing if by exercising their treaty rights, they can actually reduce the population of moose and deer through hunter-harvest.
We don't just want to go out destroying populations of deer and moose if we don't have to. We want to look at how dense are they, and then like slowly try to bring it down.
We want to understand kind of the dynamics of all of the species around them that's related to their declines. The ecosystem monitoring camera program is meant to take a very holistic look at the picture.
So trail cameras are used to help understand the abundance of species. So, and also to look at their distribution. So what habitats they, are more frequently found in.
So we're gonna set up some remote wildlife cameras. It's pretty easy to do. You essentially just strap them to a tree, make sure that they're pointing in the right direction and kind of focus properly. Then you leave them out for a year to collect data. We're just trying to get a baseline understanding of what the populations look like right now. Then from that, we can understand if the wolf culls are kind of resulting in an increase in deer and moose densities.
Industry has to get on board on like reclaiming linear features, because caribou could probably outrun a wolf in like a dense stand. But like when it's wide open, wolves will run an animal down a seismic line. A seismic line is a line that industry cuts to measure formations, as well as like if they're already producing those formations, like the change over time in those formations.
Planting trees to get trees growing on that kind of stagnated linear feature. And even things like blocking lines by felling trees over to slow wolves down in the short term while those trees regrow.
So if you plant trees on a seismic line today, those things won't necessarily yield benefit for decades. So I mean, the number one thing you have to do is you have to conserve undisturbed landscape.
They helped us at one point, so now I think it's our turn to help them. We need to help them recover, so that way like future generations can like see a caribou in our traditional area.